Welcome to a deep dive. We're here to take the source material you shared and really dig into what's insightful. Think of us as your guides, kind of unpacking the complex stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And today we're looking into, well, the pretty intense world of police interrogation, specifically focusing on human behavior under pressure through excerpts from the confession of Lee Rodart.
Right, that's the one. It covers the police questioning after Savannah Gold disappeared. It's tough material, but the source gives these incredible glimpses into how investigators navigate deception to get to the truth. And we're sticking strictly to the details in your source material here.
Exactly. Our goal really is to walk you through this specific event, pointing out those key moments, the tactics used, the back and forth, and maybe some of those subtle tells that detectives pick up on.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's August 2nd, 2017. Savannah Gold is reported missing. And what immediately worried her family, according to the source, were these texts they got.
Right, texts that were apparently full of typos and just didn't sound like her. Very out of character. That's what sparked the initial panic.
Yeah, caused them to really worry. And then the crucial piece of evidence surfaces, as detailed in the source. It's CCTV footage.
From the parking lot of the Bonefish Grill where Savannah worked, this becomes central.
Absolutely essential. The video, it shows Savannah getting into this silver car.
Mhm.
And then you see the car itself shaking violently.
Like from the inside.
Yeah, exactly. And the door gets pushed open and then pulled shut 3 separate times.
Wow.
And then the car just drives away. With Savannah still inside, the source is clear. She's never seen again after that moment.
And that car, the silver one, it was quickly traced back to Lee Rodart.
Who the source notes was a manager at the same restaurant and had been dating Savannah for maybe 2 months or so.
So naturally, he's brought in, arrested, but here's an interesting detail from the source, shows a bit of strategy.
Right. They didn't tell him it was about Savannah initially.
No, they told him it was for some, quote, unimportant traffic warrant. Just a reason, a pretext to get him into that interrogation room without raising his guard too much about the real reason.
And then they leave him alone for 90 minutes.
Right. That isolation plus the sort of false reason for being there, it's designed to ramp up the anxiety. The source says his mindset was, yeah, anxious, but also weirdly confident.
He thought he had it figured out.
Kinda. Thought they had no real evidence, thought he was smarter than the detectives questioning him.
Which, as the source really highlights, turned out to be a massive misjudgment. So after that 90 minutes, the real interrogation starts. The detective who spoke to him before comes in with another investigator. And the first question is just so simple.
Deceptively simple. How long have you known her?
And his answer is something else.
Oh, yeah. This is one of the first big tells the source points out. Lee's answer to that very direct, simple question goes on for over 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Just for how long have you known her?
Oh,
that
yeah.
sounds evasive.
Totally. He just launches into this really long story about their relationship, how they hung out. He even brings up alleged drug use by Savannah.
Which the source mentions wasn't confirmed by anyone else, right?
Correct. Unconfirmed by others. And he mentions seeing her recently. The source really emphasizes this point. Usually, if someone's truthful, simple questions, simple answer.
But a long, rambling answer can signal pressure, like you're hiding something.
Exactly. Trying too hard to convince, maybe filling the silence. It seems that's what Lee was doing right from the start.
Okay, so that overly long answer puts them on alert. Now the detectives start pushing back a bit, using what they know. They point out a contradiction.
Yes, because in a previous interview, just a brief one, he'd apparently said he hadn't seen Savannah in a while.
Ah.
So the detective brings this up carefully, like, hey, that's not what you said before, implying they know something's off, but crucially, not revealing how they know.
And that pressure, it works. He changes his story.
He does. It's the first real shift. He admits, okay, yeah, he did see her last on Wednesday afternoon. That's the day she vanished. Around 5:30 p.m. in the Bonefish parking lot.
Which lines up perfectly with the timing they probably already knew from. Well, other sources or maybe that video.
Precisely. But admitting that doesn't lead to the truth. Instead, he digs in deeper with a new, fabricated story.
Right, this is where the whole green truck story comes in, the one detailed in the source.
Yeah, he tries to explain that 5:30 meeting. He claims they argued in his car because he confronted her about telling people they were boyfriend-girlfriend. He says she claimed she just used heroin.
Which, again, the source flags is weird, right? Right before a work shift.
Highly questionable, yeah. And he says she was paranoid. Then he claims he got angry, got out, punched a hole in his own tire,
Punched his tire, okay.
and threatened her windows. And then, here's the core of the lie. He claims she got out of his car, was on her phone, and then this older green Ford pickup truck with tinted windows pulls up.
He even adds details, like seeing a baseball cap inside.
Right. And his story is that she got into that truck, it drove away with her, and then he left the scene.
But the source makes it crystal clear this
Yep.
is just false.
Completely false. The CCTV footage, the key evidence, shows she never got out of his car. His car drives away, and she's still inside it.
So he's just guessing what they might know and trying to create an alternate scenario.
Exactly. And digging himself into a deeper hole, as the source points out, it really highlights that tactical advantage of, say, asking for a lawyer, because it can force the police to show more of their cards before you start making up stories that directly contradict video evidence they're holding.
Makes sense. So they've got him on this huge, provable lie about the truck. But they're not just listening, are they? They're watching him, too.
Always watching. And they notice something on his neck.
Ah, the mark.
Yeah. They ask him about it, and his explanation is, well, elaborate again. He claims he did it to himself with a knife way back in July.
Because he was having a hard time.
Yeah, personal struggles, and he just peeled the scab recently. Maybe he hit it at work.
But the source calls this explanation brazen. Like, it just didn't fit.
Didn't fit his recent behavior, didn't look like an old self-inflicted wound from weeks ago. Just another layer of potential deception.
And this is where the source talks about his nonverbal cues, right?
Mhm.
The physical tells when he's lying.
Yeah, this part is fascinating. It says he wasn't doing the typical stuff, like crossing his arms or slouching way down.
No, what was he doing?
Specific things. Jittery movements. Like earlier, when they first caught him in that inconsistency about seeing her, he was bouncing his leg.
Okay, nervous energy.
And then the source notes almost every single time he told a lie, describing the neck injury, describing that green truck, he'd move his hand and fingers in this, quote, unnatural way.
Wow, some specific physical actions tied directly to the lies. The source called it almost comical how perfectly it lines up.
It's a striking detail. These became clear physical signals the detectives could potentially read alongside his words.
And the timing of bringing up the neck injury. The source suggests that was strategic too.
Very likely. They probably saw it way earlier. But they waited. They brought it up after he was already defensive and likely stressed about the truck lie.
So pile on the pressure.
Exactly. You're caught in lie A, feeling cornered, and boom, now they're asking about this physical thing, observation B. It increases the paranoia. And then, right after asking about the neck, they immediately pivot back to the truck lie again.
Just keep hammering that weak spot.
Right. And Lee is visibly struggling now, according to the source. The detective pushes him. Okay, if this random truck driver was the last person to see Savannah anywhere, why didn't you mention this extremely important fact when police were desperately searching for her?
Good point. What does he say?
He claims he freaked out because he knew he was the last one to see her at Bonefish.
Oh,
But the detective immediately jumps on that. Wait, you just claimed the truck driver was the last one to see her anywhere? Now you're saying you were? Your stories aren't matching up.
he's tying himself in knots.
Completely. The source uses this to show how someone fabricating under pressure starts tripping over their own invented details.
So he's cornered. His lies aren't working. Maybe his body language is giving him away. The questioning is relentless. What happens next? The dynamic shifts.
It does. Big shift. The male detective keeps up that direct pressure, asking point blank, where is Savannah right now? But then the female detective, who'd been mostly quiet,
She steps in.
she starts speaking, and it changes the whole feel of the room. She uses a different tactic.
What does she do?
She brings in this strong emotional appeal. The source describes her getting quite emotive, talking about her own daughter being Savannah's age.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, emphasizing how desperately Savannah's family needs answers, needs to find her. She positions them as just fact finders, not personally against him. She basically begs him, appeals to his humanity, just tell the truth.
So an emotional plea after all the logical pressure.
Exactly. And it's immediately followed by the knockout blow, confronting him directly with the hard evidence they have.
The video.
The video, the female detective lays it all out. She never gets out of that car, Lee. You drive off with her still inside.
No ambiguity.
None. She even describes the struggle they saw on the tape. She kicked open that door 3 times, Lee. She kicked it. We saw it. And she confirms, point blank, they have proof. I wouldn't know this unless we had video of it, correct? And he has to agree. Yes, correct.
That must have been the moment. Facing undeniable proof that his entire truck story was impossible.
That's the turning point described in the source. His whole fabrication just crumbles right there.
So what happens then? Does he confess everything?
He starts to. Faced with the reality of the video, he admits what happened inside the car, the struggle.
The details.
Admits she tried to slap him, he slapped her back, she desperately tried to get out, and he grabbed her waist to stop her.
Still trying to justify it a bit.
A little, yeah. He tries to frame it like they often had arguments where she, quote, doesn't care what happens, sort of downplaying it.
But they keep pressing him, I assume.
They do, and that's when the full confession about the killing comes out. He admits that when she wouldn't stop hitting him during the struggle, he squeezed back.
Squeeze back where?
Specifically, he admits squeezing her around the neck.
And then? Does he tell them where she is?
Yes. Finally, he gives them the location, a pond, west side of Club du Clay in Longchamp.
And they found her there?
According to the source, yes. A few days later, a dive team recovered Savannah's remains from that pond. Tragically, the source notes the remains were burned almost unrecognizable.
So they couldn't even determine the exact cause of death.
No, the condition prevented that.
And the outcome for Lee Rodart.
The source states he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, sentenced in March 2021 to 40 years in prison.
So looking back at this whole interrogation, as laid out in the source material, it's just this combination of things, isn't it? Catching the verbal lies, noticing the physical tells.
The strategic timing of questions, building pressure.
And then the absolute game changer. That objective CCTV evidence. It's like all these layers working together chipped away at his story until it just collapsed.
Absolutely. What really stands out is how the investigators used all those streams of information together. It wasn't just what he said, but how he said it, how he acted, and how it all stacked up against the known, provable facts from that video. They built the whole picture.
Yeah, it really makes you think about how much we rely on the stories people tell us, even in, everyday situations.
For sure. And how sometimes just a small inconsistency, a weird physical cue, or crucially some piece of external evidence can completely change our perception of whether something's true.
This case, as detailed in the source, is such a stark example of that dance between deception, careful observation, and undeniable proof. It definitely leaves you thinking.
What does it make you consider about how you evaluate the information people give you day to day? How do you decide what narrative rings true?
Definitely something to chew on. This has been a deep dive.